What is good, guys? Thank y'all for tuning back into the channel, man. If you're new, make sure you hit that sub button down below to be notified for every single video that I do drop, man. You don't want to miss out on it, man. And if you're new to the channel, listen, for anybody that's new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, right? And once you hit that subscribe button, make sure you go hit the bell. And once you press the bell, press all, man. That's how you notify for every single video that I do drop, man. And go follow the Instagram. It's right here. It's Shawn91 underscore, man. And the link is down below in the description, man. We almost at 100 followers over there, guys. So, sorry for missing yesterday, guys. I got home around 11 o'clock and I was very, very tired, so I had to get some rest. But anyways, man, as y'all can see by the title, she was taken to hell to marry Lucifer. One of the most touching testimonies you will ever hear. And an angel sang to her, and then Jesus showed up. That's self-explanatory. It's two parts to this, guys, and we're gonna listen. We're gonna look at both parts today. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video.
Had supernatural encounters early because, my grandmother was truly anointed and, the gifting came to me. And the relationship, that I had with my mother in the house, it was hard. The love that I got came from my grandmother and my grandfather. I grew up feeling like, my mom really didn't like me because of a lot of things that would happen. Like when my grandmother wasn't around, she was very mean to me. When they separated, my dad got visits. This started when I was about around like 4, 5 years old. He would take us to these random houses, and my sister, was the favorite. She never got none of this. It was just me for some reason. When my dad would take me into these rooms where all these older men were, and I would get abused. I'll just say that. So eventually, I ended up telling my grandmother. My mom's response was, well, you're a little liar, and you're just being a SLUT. I'm not gonna say the word out loud. It was just awful. And I just didn't understand it, because I was young. These things, which, I'll get into later, is these little tiny open doors, even young, like this is how the enemy gets in early. And I remember one time I went to give her a hug, and I remember she pushed me away so hard, and I ended up hitting the edge of this marble table, so it like cut my eye, and I had to end up going to the hospital and getting stitches. And then I remember her telling me, well, don't tell, if you don't tell your grandma that I pushed you, you tell her you fell. There was an add-on porch that my grandfather built, and there was a mattress, like if a mattress was sitting against the wall. And I remember I would hide under there to just to be away from my mom, as young as I was. And I would sit under there. And I remember at the time, this angel would sit with me and just talk with me and keep me calm, because I remember just being so scared. And I would peek my head around the corner from the mattress, just waiting for my grandmother to pull up and hoping my mom wasn't looking for me. And I remember this angel would just sit with me and sing and talk with me. So I would have those kind of supernatural experiences and different things, as well as, one time, I saw a lot of angels, younger, around that age, even going through all that. One day after it rained, I was looking out the back porch door, and I looked up at the sky, and part of it opened, and I could see like this gold, it's like a gold platform, and there were angels all lined up on it with musical instruments. And I got my grandma. I was like, Grandma, do you see that? There's angels up there, and they're playing music. And she said, I can't see them, baby, but I believe you. She would always believe me. She wouldn't downplay what I would tell her, because she could see angels too. But also, in our house, there was also spiritual activity. When my mom would go to work at night, my grandma would have to sit in the bedroom while we were going to bed, because I would look over in a mirror that was in the house, in the room, and there would be these spirits in it, and they would be taunting me and calling my name. And I kept telling my grandma about it. I was like, these spirits are over there. It's like these floating, one had a floating head, it was just a head, and other ones are just spirits. And I would tell her about it, and she would go get her oil, she would go get her Bible, and she would start praying, and then they would go away. I would get up at night because I would go to the kitchen table, and there was this soldier looking guy with a dog, And I know this sounds creepy, but this is just how it was, how it looked, and he was actually holding his head under his arm, and he would talk to me. So one night my grandmother got up and she was like, "Who are you talking to?" And I told her, it's like this guy right there, he's holding his head in under his arm, and he has a dog. She goes and gets the Bible and gets her oil and starts praying. And so eventually, I kept seeing all these spirits in the house. And this started like after the abuse had happened. It was like I used to see angels, and then it started turning into seeing darker things. So she got the pastor, and he came over to the house and he anointed it. A lot of the spirit activity actually stopped for a little while. It stopped for a couple years till I got about 12 years old. I went to my grandmother. We would go to church every Sunday, and I was like, I want to get baptized. And when I got baptized that night, and for 7 nights in a row, each night, Jesus came to me. And I don't know if it was dream, if it was vision, but he came to me and he would take me by the hand and he took me places and he showed me things. Like one night he took me, it looked like where the Red Sea was parted, and it was like we were standing on top of this red mountain, and down below he pointed and we were looking, and it was where their people were selling things, kind of like that story in the Bible. They were down there sinning, and he was angry, and he was like, "Look." And then all of a sudden, the water came through and just washed everybody away. And then, like the next night I had another encounter. He came and took me by the hand again, and he showed me flooding. And then he took me by the hand the next night, and we were standing somewhere, and the sun was in the sky, and all of a sudden the sun got bigger and bigger and started falling to the earth, and it got hot. And then I woke up. I'm not sure what those dreams meant till later. And then the last dream I had, and this was like the beginning of the getting into the witchcraft. The last dream I had, it was just darkness. It was like kind of like just, like how the sky looks, the dark galaxy, stars everywhere. And there was Satan's face, like it was just his face, and I knew it was him. And he was laughing. The last dream I had, there was Satan's face, like it was just his face, and he was laughing. And then as he was laughing, he started screaming in pain. And then all of a sudden, the face of Jesus burst through, and like his face exploded, went into 1,000 million pieces, and just turned into the stars. And Jesus' face was just there smiling at me. Like a week later, he started middle school, I think it was. And I made a friend, and her mom was a witch, and I didn't really know what witch was. We would play with the Ouija board and stuff like that, but I brought it home. I would wait till everybody would go to bed, and I would sit in the living room and play with it. And you know how you're supposed to have a whole bunch of hands on it and stuff. Well, when I had it, you didn't have to. I hardly had to touch it, and that thing would move. And so I started talking to it, and I asked, what the spirit's name was that was in it. And he told me he actually had a name. He told me where he originated from, how old he was, and everything. So it became like this thing, like where I just got drawn, like to just I would get up every night and keep talking to him, keep talking to him. One day I was talking to him, and he started saying, he said, "Do you want me to be, your friend in real life?" The spirit in there, which is a demon, they're not spirits, these are familiar spirits. They'll act like somebody but they're not, they're just demons. He knew I didn't really have any friends, and
Y'all heard that, man. A lot of y'all that think that somebody that just passed in your family, um, that and as it's talking to you and look like them, it's not really them, man. Like I know a lot of y'all gonna have a lot to say about that, but um, it's just a familiar spirit, man. For real, it's just a familiar spirit. I feel like if you're gone I need to look up a Bible verse. Y'all, somebody put down a Bible verse down below. But if you just passed away and you're gone to heaven with Jesus Christ, I mean, your spirit is up there. I mean, like, if somebody want to elaborate for me down below in the comments, man. We gotta educate one another, man. You know what I'm saying? This channel all about, but best to believe it's familiar spirits, man. They try to act like somebody that you know. You know what I'm saying? Be aware. Watch out for that. Stay prayed up. Let's get back into the video.
how I felt just alone, loner. And he was like, "Do you want me to be your friend in real life?" And of course, I said yes. And he was like, "Well, there's a way that you can help me come to real life. If you do what I'm about to tell you to do, then you'll meet me in person." And so I was like, "Okay, well, what do I need to do?" So this is all spelling stuff out on this board. And like I said, half the time I didn't even have to touch it. He would just move it. And sometimes I would just hear him, like, and I'd feel it. And that's hard to explain, but some of you watching, you'll know what I'm talking about. He said, first you have to get some blood from an animal and pour it on this board. And then he said he was going to give me these words to say. And then after I do that, to whatever it was that I wiped the board up with, get the blood, he told me, to pick a person and wipe it on that person. And he would go into that person and habitate that body. He wanted a body. So when he said that, I got this
Wow.
really bad feeling. And I was like, that was kind of like too far for me. Okay, because I lived out in the country, there's squirrels, there's animals, stuff. I'm not gonna go kill some animal and like pour blood on the board. I thought this was a friend, a spirit I'm talking to, that's cool. Now he's telling me to go, do something crazy. And I was feeling just something like, just go tell your grandma about this, because it started getting out of control. And also at this time at night I was having sleep paralysis. A lot of times I would feel it, like I would lay on my back and it would sit on my chest, like it was crushing my chest, and then I would just say, like, help me. I was like, what's going on, help me. And then I would say, Jesus, Jesus, and it would just get off of me, and I would jump up and scream, so I would get up and go in my grandma's room. She was like, what's happening? I told her what was happening. I pulled the board out from under here, and she took it, and she was like, take that thing down, to the woods and throw it away right now. Like, take it and bury it. I went out there, I buried it. I know I buried it, like deep, way down in the woods. My uncle lived in the house too. He went with me, and went back to the house, and she prayed with me, and I was crying because I felt ashamed. And my grandmother, like, no matter how many mistakes I made, no matter what I did, she always always said she loved me. She always hugged me, she always prayed with me. She was like, well, you're not supposed to be messing with stuff like that. The next day, I was just, it's just family in the house, just sitting there, and I heard something, or just felt it, like, go look in the drawer. And I went and looked in the drawer where I used to hide it. And the Ouija board was sitting in there, wrapped up like I always used to do it. After I clearly buried it. So, and there was no dirt on it, like I never did it at all. So I went and ran and I told my grandmother. And she took the board, and we had like one of those old time, like the iron wood stoves where you put the wood in there. She took it and threw it in the stove and burned it, and I watched it burn, and the flames coming off of it, they weren't yellow at all. They were like this blue, whitish flame. And it was like, the way, like when something burns, it'll snap, and crackle, and pop. While when this was burning, it sounded like screaming, like hissing, screaming, like literally. She heard it too. She prayed over me, and she was like, you can't mess with these things. And you would think after that, I learned. Well, in my head, kid, I'm like, that was the Ouija board. So my friend had the witch mom. She had other stuff. I got into candles and spell work. Just these little spells, they're not little, because no spell you cast is a joke. She would do her spell, and we would all sit in our little circle and do it. And it just started opening up this new fascination.
Well, I'm gonna tell you one thing. Don't be fascinated by no witchcraft. Don't be fascinated by no Ouija board. You know what I'm saying? For my youngest is watching this, and for the older ones, man. It's a lot of stuff that I'm learning, man. And I just want to give y'all a few verses, man. And for the ones that is dealing with witchcraft and all this other stuff, and you're trying to change and stuff like that, Leviticus chapter 20, verse 27. A man or a woman who has a ghost or a familiar spirit shall be put to death. They shall be pelted. Micah chapter 5, verse 12. I will put an end to all witchcraft, and there will be no more fortune tellers. God already telling you, man, that he ain't dealing with none of that. You know what I'm saying? Um, you're trying to create pathways and shortcuts for your life instead of going to God about everything that's going on in your life. You know what I'm saying? All wicked shall be cut off, all evil shall stop. You know what I'm saying? In Jesus' name. So if you're into that type of stuff, let it go. You know what I'm saying? For the ones that is kind of like, yo, I'm new to this, don't try it. It can ruin your life. You know what I'm saying? And especially when you are new in Jesus, walking with Him, getting baptized and getting to know God, know that a lot of stuff is going to try to stop you from getting closer to Him, to getting to know Him, for gaining that spiritual power that you supposed to have from God to fight these evil spirits and evil things out of your life. You know what I'm saying? So, um, this channel, man, definitely we gotta educate one another. Y'all put some verses down below. You know what I'm saying? Because over here on this channel, man, we're fighting against all wickedness, man. We exposing the darkness, man. We the light over here. So when you see somebody new coming to this channel, man, you know what I'm saying? Welcome them. And just educate one another, you know what I'm saying, to get closer to God, man. That's what this channel is about. It's inspiring. Her testimony is, you know, powerful. It's crazy and what she done went through. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully she's doing good now, and that type of stuff is out of her life, man. But y'all comment down below exactly what y'all think. And at the end of my videos, I always say stay inspired, stay motivated, stay grinding, man. Until the next video, your boy is out of here. Peace.